You probably know that walking is good for weight loss, but has anyone ever told you how you can do it consistently? Well, in this video, I break down the 5 psychological hacks that you can implement in your life right now to walk 10, 15,000 steps per day without even thinking about it. So that at the end of the day, you look at your phone and you're like, fucking hell, I did that. Look, I'm Niam. I lost 50 kilos. I walk 15,000 steps pretty consistently. Let's get into it and enter the classroom.
All right, before I get into it, I need to explain to you the deep psychology behind the 5 tips that I'm going to be sharing that are going to help you get your steps in without thinking about it. The reason for this is because if you understand what's going on inside of your brain, you're going to take action with the understanding and the passion so that you actually take action. You don't just learn what I say and then fucking forget about it 2 minutes later. The first thing that you need to understand, and this is an idea that was popularized by a man called Daniel Kahneman. He won a Nobel Prize. I studied him when I was studying economics at university. And what he said and what he revolutionized was this idea that we have system 2 and system 1 in our brain. And so when you start driving, for example, you might have to put the clutch down. You might have to press the accelerator. You might have to drive the wheel. But all of that thing requires a lot of your attention. And I remember when I was first started driving, I had a great driving instructor called Sirish. And what he would do is he would basically drive for me. He would have the pedals there next to me and I would accidentally press the brake randomly because I would get scared of crashing or some bullshit like that. And all of my attention was consumed by trying to control this car that I didn't know how to control. And the reason for this is because we are building the neural pathways to learn how to drive. But then what happens is that we end up being able to drive unconsciously all of a sudden, and we are able to talk to the driving instructor next to us about the hot girl that was walking past. And as a result of that, what has happened in your brain is that you have transferred from system 2 to system 1. You have gone from conscious to unconscious. And that means when you're driving to work, you can think about the meeting that you've got at 9 a.m. where you might be getting fired, like me a few years ago, where I got taken into a room and I got told, bam, 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 this is your last day. And I'm so glad it happened. But that's a side point. This is a crucial understanding of the brain, that every single activity that you undertake will start off as system 2. You will start off with system 2, conscious and deliberate. And eventually, as you do things more, you'll go from system 2 to system 1, which is the beautiful thing about our brain, is because you can pick up habits, learn how to do them, and eventually do them so unconsciously that you don't have to think about it. And so the next 5 hacks are all going to be about getting you from system 2 to system 1, getting your 10K steps in, getting your 15K steps in, from system 2 to system 1, so from conscious to unconscious, as quickly as possible. Because if you can do that, imagine you walking 15K steps without thinking, bro, you're gonna be shedding those pounds faster than a Wetherspoon's tap pulls beer into a glass. I don't know if that saying was that good, but hey, we're gonna leave it in. By the way, if you want to learn more about psychology and behavioral science, because this is what I studied at university and what I'm super passionate about and how I used it to lose 50 kilos, then click the link in the description and join my community, because it could just change your life. Actually, it will change your life. Okay, so we understand now that we're going from system 2 to system 1, conscious to unconscious. And so the first hack is called the morning booster. And if you can do this every single day and make this the thing that you prioritize, oh my God, in a year you're gonna look back and your jeans are gonna be fitting. In fact, you're gonna need a whole new wardrobe. You're gonna have to go into Levi's and you're gonna have to be like, girl, I need a new pair of jeans. Fucking hell, I'm pulling out all the tricks today, aren't I? Anyway, so I wanna introduce you to an idea called ego depletion theory. So in ego depletion theory, the idea is that we have 100 brain points at the start of the day. 100 brain points. And this represents the capacity of our system 2 brain. So we start with 100 brain points. And then as we go through our day, maybe we brush teeth, which requires 10 brain points. Actually, no, maybe like 2 brain points, because it's not that intensive, right? and we go to school, it requires 3 brain points or work, whatever. And then as we do more and more things, the number of brain points that we have in our system 2 brain gets depleted and depleted until we get to 0, until we have no more brain points left and we're just left lying on the sofa watching fucking Hollyoaks or some shit, or EastEnders. And basically we can't be asked to do anything. Now, at this point, when you have steps left over and you've got 0 brain points left, well, guess what? You ain't gonna go do your steps, especially if it's cold outside, especially if it's raining, especially if it's just shitty weather and you're living in the UK. Mate, if you've got 0 brain points left, you got no chance because you got no capacity. It's just like running out of petrol in your car. You can't drive it anywhere, you know what I mean? So what you wanna do is create a morning ritual and get your steps in first thing in the morning. Not all of them, but some of them. I'm gonna share actually a small little tactic in a minute that is gonna help you accelerate your progress with this one way more. But the point of doing the walk in the morning is 2 things. Firstly, it becomes a ritual, and rituals are very powerful. When you do something like walking in the morning first thing, you're priming your brain for the rest of the day. So you're getting this small win, you're like, oh, I've done something good for myself. Instead of just scrolling on Instagram, looking at some bullshit, you've gone for a walk, got some sunlight in, you've done something good for your body. And so you're priming the rest of your day to get steps in. But here's the even better trick. There was an experiment done on Indian call centers. And so they had all the Venkateshis and they had to do 50 calls a day. They split this big group in half. And one group, they gave them their pay once a week. And what they found was that this group, and I'm going to explain what happened to the other group in a minute, but this group, they always did more calls before the day that they got paid. The other group, they were like, why don't we pay them bi-weekly? The same amount of money, but they pay them on a Monday and a Friday instead of just on a Friday. And what they found was that the second group did way more calls because they were getting paid on 2 days, as if they were accelerating towards the finish line. And we see this in sports when Usain Bolt's sprinting to the finish line, or Johan Blake, they always pick up the speed when they get closer to the finish line. And so what you can do, and this is a sneaky little bonus tip, is you can do a morning booster, but instead of setting a target for your day, you set a target for the morning and you set a target for the afternoon. And so what you're doing by that is you're bringing the deadline closer. And if you think about when you were, I don't know, at school or when you're at work, whenever the deadline is a little bit closer, you feel a little bit of pressure. And when you feel a little bit of pressure, guess what? You end up taking more action. And so having a morning deadline and an afternoon deadline means that you're just more likely to be consistent. And so you're going to be motivated to do that morning booster. And when you do that morning booster consistently, guess what? You're building the habit. And as a result of that, you're going from system 2 to system 1. So the next one, I'm going to leave the system 2 and system 1 up there because that's like the foundational principle. This is something called the stack. Now, if you feel like the steps is at the back of your mind all the time, where you get to the end of the day and you've been thinking about doing your steps, but for some reason you just can't get them done, this will help you a lot. Imagine if you had to think about brushing your teeth every day. So every day you would brush your teeth at different times. And so one day it would be when you first woke up, one day it would be at lunchtime, one day it would be in the evening, one day it would be in the mid-morning break, one day it would be in the mid-afternoon. You'd probably end up forgetting to brush your teeth because you've got so many things going on. Like you've got work to go to, you've got to go pick up the kids maybe if you've got kids, you've got to do your homework if you're at school, you've got to do the washing, you've got to do the laundry. And so if you had to think about brushing your teeth every single day, you would probably forget. So then what do? Well, I got the answer for you. We just do it when we wake up and we do it when we go to sleep. And so what we've done there is something very, 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 very clever, is we've paired the desired activity with something that we already do. We already wake up, and so what we're saying is when we wake up, we're going to brush our teeth. When we go to sleep, we're going to brush our teeth. And so by pairing the desired activity with the activity that we want to do, we don't have to think about when we're going to do it. And this is incredibly powerful when you're trying to build new habits and when you're trying to take something from the system 2 brain to the system 1 brain, from the conscious to the unconscious. And so what I want you to do when you're trying to do your steps is think about a pre-existing habit that you already have. Maybe you have lunch, maybe you have dinner, maybe you have breakfast, maybe you have a work call, and think about the different habits that you already do in your life and pair walking with the pre-existing habit. I'm going to give you 3 examples of how I've implemented this in life at different stages of my life. So I used to work in corporate London and I used to work from home quite a lot. I used to work for an e-commerce company and I only had to go into the office once a week. And so I was working from home and I found that getting my steps in was a little bit difficult because it's a sedentary office job. And I'm sure that you are probably facing a similar issue where you have a sedentary job because most jobs are sedentary these days. And so you're struggling to fit in your steps because you're sitting on your ass the whole day. And guess what? Sitting is the new smoking. So you've got to start walking. And that's why I'm making this video. And so what you want to do is think about what is something that you already do. Now, something that I used to do is I used to have lunch. I used to love lunch. It was my favorite part of the day because I was trying to lose weight. I was eating in a calorie deficit. And so lunch was something that I looked forward to because I was pretty hungry and I was fasting in the morning. And so what I did was I basically said to myself that I can't have lunch until I've gone for my walk. And by the way, I tried actually going for a walk after lunch because people say, oh yeah, if you walk after you eat, you're gonna lower your glucose spike and all that jazz. But what I found was that, to be honest, if I postpone the walk till after lunch, I just end up watching YouTube and sacking off the walk, I can't lie. And so instead, I went for a walk before lunch. And so I paired the desired activity with the pre-existing habit. And as a result of that, I became super consistent with walking. And to this day, I'm doing the same thing. So I'm living in Bali, as you know, and I still want to get my steps in without thinking. And so I've created a great system. And so I train at this gym called Nirvana. And the food there is great, but I like to eat local food because I'm trying to be like a local, brother. And so I go down the road to this beautiful shop and there's this lady called Emma that cooks me a very nice lunch. And so I go there every single day and she knows my order and I get 200 grams of chicken, 4 eggs and something called gado gado. And gado gado, besides the point, is this Indonesian dish where you have peanut sauce on some veg, to put it simply, with a bit of tofu, get a bit of protein in there. And so I have that meal. And so I go in there and I say, can I have the usual, please? But then I go for a walk. It's a 10-minute walk, and by the time I'm back, she's cooked my meal. It's about £3, $4. She's cooked my meal, I eat, and then guess what? I go for another walk afterwards. So I go for a walk before, go for a walk afterwards, then I go back to Nirvana, back to work. And so that's how I've paired the desired activity with the pre-existing habit so that I don't have to think about it. Taking my walking from system 2 to system 1, brother. All right, the next one is something called the Fun Bundle. And this one's saucy, all right? So stick around and write some notes, all right? If you feel like you're unmotivated to walk at the end of the day, this can be a powerful tactic to implement in your life. It's cold, it's rainy, maybe you're tired, maybe you've used up all your brain points. Well, this is something that you can have in your back pocket and just bring it out like a joker in the game of bluff. I don't even know if a joker is useful in bluff, but hey, we're gonna roll with it, you know what I'm saying? So we're gonna talk about toothbrushing again. Because you know what, it's just a good example to think about when we're building habits. Because nearly everyone, unless you're a fucking stinky fart, brushes twice a day pretty consistently. Sometimes there's the odd day where you might forget, and that's all right. But most of the time you just do it and you get it done. And that's the same with your steps. You just want to get it done without thinking about it and maybe have the odd day where you're a bit low. So when they first introduced toothpaste into the world, I don't know when, don't ask me, but what happened, and this is really interesting, is that they didn't actually have a minty flavor. There was no minty flavor. And so people, they weren't brushing their teeth because there was no incentive for them to do so. And so they, as a result, were like, how can we incentivize people to brush their teeth? And so they introduced mint into the toothpaste, which is super interesting because I just thought they used to use mint because that actually helps the teeth, but nah, it's just because it tastes nice. And so this is the great thing. What they've actually done in the deep psychological hack that they've done to get you brushing your teeth consistently is that they've paired the desired activity with something that you enjoy. So when you brush your teeth, you're like, oh, I feel so refreshed. And so if you've ever gone to sleep without brushing your teeth, I don't do this often, but if you've ever done this, it might feel a little bit uncomfortable, not because you've not brushed your teeth, but you're craving that feeling of mint. And so if you struggle to get your steps in, maybe you're working a lot throughout the day, and then at the end of the day, you always feel like you can't be asked, then something that you can do, which is super, super powerful, is pair walking with something fun. And what I did in London when I was living at home, so I can't eat meat at home. My family is vegetarian and there is a meat ban in the house. We ain't allowed to eat it, which is completely fine. I respect my parents' rules. If they say no meat, I'm like, yeah, calm. But I like chicken. But I was feeling a bit deprived. But then I had an idea and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go and on my walk, I'm gonna go to the petrol station and I'm gonna get this little tasting chicken. And this tasting chicken is about 40 calories, 5.8 grams of protein. It gives me a hit of chicken. So whenever I felt unmotivated to go for my walk, all I did was said to myself, well, if you go for this walk, the reward can be, you can get some chicken. And so all of a sudden, I was like, bro, I'm going for a walk 3 times a day because I can just get my chicken. And so if you feel like you're struggling to go for a walk, pair the activity of walking with something you enjoy. And that could be listening to a podcast. That could be listening to your favorite YouTube video. If you get YouTube Premium, by the way, this is something that I do, a little quick hack. If you get YouTube Premium, you can lock your phone and listen to YouTube videos. So you have all of YouTube at your disposal when you go for walks. And I think it's the best thing in the world. It's only $12.99 a month as well. So it's pretty affordable and it's just a quick hack if you like using YouTube. And you can listen to me all day. But pair something fun. And it could be just going to get a coffee if you like walking in the morning. It could be, I used to go to Budgeon's on the road and go get like sparkling water and squash on my walk, just because it was something I used to enjoy. And as a result of that, it made me more motivated to go for my walk, taking me from system 2 to system 1. So I started to do it unconsciously. And number 4, we have, and this is going to be really important if you work an office job, and this is actually going to blow your mind. And it's going to change the way that you think about your work. And it's going to make you a lot more money. So I need to give you a bit of a history lesson before we get into it. Because you see, there's something about the 40-hour work week which I don't really enjoy. So in the Industrial Revolution, what happened is that the way that people measured productivity was the time that workers spent on the machine. So if I was a worker in the Industrial Revolution and I worked in some factory, the only increase in productivity that I would be able to obtain is spending more time, all else being equal, spending more time on a machine. And I'm going to relate this back to walking in a second. But then what happened is that everyone started working in front of screens, and we went from the Industrial Revolution to the Knowledge Revolution. And so we are now in the age of knowledge work. And what knowledge work is that you take in some information, and this is, if you're working in front of a screen, this is all you're doing. You're taking some information in, you're absorbing this information, you're doing a bit of XYZ to it, some Pythagoras theorem, and then you're spitting out this information. If you're a consultant, that's what you're doing. If you're a lawyer, that's what you're doing. If you're a banker, that's what you're doing. If you're any one of these roles, you're just taking in information, thinking about the information, putting your magic on it, and then giving it out to the world. This means that the amount of time that you spend working is not directly proportional to the quality of your work, to your output. And so what you need to understand is that just because you have a 40-hour work week, it doesn't mean that the most productive way to spend your time is at the desk. So I'm going to explain some psychology right now. I'm going to hit you with a bish bash bosh psychology that if you understand this, mate, your productivity is going to go through the roof and you're going to make way more money. But there is something in the brain called the default mode network. And the default mode network is actually most active when your brain is not actively engaged. And what your default mode network is doing is always thinking about the goals that you have. So for example, at the moment, my goal is to blow up on YouTube and become a celebrity, you know. It's just to create valuable videos for you. And so when I go for a walk outside, I have some of the most creative ideas, because when I go for a walk, this kind of background thinking, this default mode network is just active and active and active. And as a result of that, right, when I go for a walk, in fact, the idea for this video came whilst I was walking. So if you're working in the age of knowledge work and your productivity is not actually tied to your time, but it's tied to the quality of your ideas, then you need to have time away from the desk in order to have your best ideas. You need to have time where your mind is not actively engaged on a task in order for you to have your best ideas. Now, this could be when you're washing the dishes, this could be when you're hoovering or some shit, but guess what? You can also just go for a walk. And so what I suggest, and this is why it's called the productive walk, is that you might be working for an hour and a half, super focused on the task that you're doing. Maybe you're a lawyer and you're doing some drafting of some documents, or maybe you're a banker and you're doing whatever fucking bankers do. And you're super focused. Now at some point your brain is gonna be like, right, I need a break. Now instead of going onto Instagram and scrolling on fucking some random reels that are basically brain dead and actually absorbing your attention, you're gonna go for a walk and step outside and let your brain breathe. And there's gonna be a problem that you're solving. But instead of going on TikTok and scrolling and not allowing your default mode network to do the work that it's meant to be doing, you're gonna go for this work and you're gonna have the thoughts going on in the background of the work that you're meant to be focused on. And as a result of that, you're gonna come back to your desk, and as a result, you're gonna have way more creative ideas about how to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And so this is a great way, especially if you work in front of a computer, to become way more productive at work without actually doing any more work. And that is gonna make you more money, because guess what? Money equals value. And finally, the last point is, and this is maybe the best one, especially if you're super busy. And if you feel like, all right, I've implemented every single tip that you, Niam, have told me, but I'm still struggling to get my steps in, then this is what you gotta do. This is the last straw. And if you do this and you do all of them, I guarantee you're gonna be hitting 15K steps per day without fail. And there's an example of a dentist that I work with at the moment, and she's lost 9 kilos. And by the way, if you wanna just work with me, hit the link in the description, join my community, and we'll just get you transformed ASAP. But she was a dentist, and if you know what a dentist is, they check your teeth, and they're basically standing in the same room every single day. But the thing is, she wanted to lose weight, all right? She wanted to get fit, she wanted to get healthy, and so she knew that she needs to get steps in. But because she was standing in this room the whole time, it was very, 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 very difficult for her to get her steps in. And so we had a chat and we were like, okay, how can we find pockets in your day to get your steps in? And so we found 3 different strategies that I'm gonna outline for you now. And the first strategy was something called steps cycling. And this is something that I've not heard anyone talk about. I've heard the whole calorie cycling thing, but step cycling, nah, brother. This is revolutionary. And what you can do is, say if you need to walk 10,000 steps per day, that's your target, that's what you want to do, that's what you've hit. You can do more steps on some days and less steps on other days. And so as a result of that, you're still hitting your overall 70K steps per week, and you're still burning the same number of calories, but on the days that you're perhaps working or more sedentary, you don't have that pressure, and it just means that you catch up on the days that you have the time to be a little bit more active. So you're finding pockets in your week to be more active. The second one is something called work cycling. I'm not gonna lie, I just made that up. But she was a dentist, okay? And so she was in this room the whole time. But then she was like, hang on a second. Instead of getting my nurse to go and get my patients, I can go and get my patients myself. So every time she had to get a patient, and she was doing like 12 patients a day or something like that, maybe even more. she would walk down instead of her nurse and get the steps in. And as a result of that, she was getting another 2,000 steps per day, because sometimes she would walk around, but if she had a bit of extra time, she would go and have a chat with other nurses, other doctors. And so just that little hack of walking, finding the pockets in her day to get more steps in, she was able to increase her step count by maybe 2,000. And the thing is, I've done this in my life as well, where like, and this is gonna sound super pedantic, but like, I work at this co-working space in Bali at the moment, and there is a tap in the room. So there's a tap in the room to get water. And I walk to the other side of the gym, and this gym is fucking huge, all right? This gym has got a swimming pool, it's got a sauna, it's got an ice bath, it's got literally everything that you could ask for. And I walk to the other side of the gym just to get my water, because it just helps me get a few extra steps in without really thinking about it. So every time I need to drink, and I've taken this from system 2 to system 1, so I'm not thinking about it now, my unconscious reaction when I need to fill up my water bottle is literally just like, go to the other side of the gym. And as a result of that, I'm just getting extra like 2,000-3,000 steps, and I'm doing like 15K steps without even thinking at the moment. So that's how you do it. And then finally, I don't even know what to call it, but I'm gonna say normal cycling. That's a bit of a shit name. If you can think of a name and put it in the comments of the thing that I've just explained, then you can join my community for free. And it has to be a good name. But this is what I'm saying, all right? If you go grocery shopping, ask yourself where you park. Because I used to park in the closest parking space to the door. But why the hell would I do that when I can just park in the furthest parking space? And the thing is, right, no one parks in the furthest parking space. And so there's a number of benefits to this. One is that I'm not squeezing for the closest parking space because everyone's fucking lazy and they don't like walking, okay? But two, I get way more steps in because I have to walk all the way from my car to the supermarket and back to my car after I finish shopping. And the other thing that I can do is when I go on the tube, instead of walking on the escalator, just get up the stairs. And no one likes walking up the stairs, so you have way more space. And so if you just take the more active route in any portion of your life, you're gonna get way more steps in, you're gonna burn way more calories, and in a year, I guarantee, right, you're gonna drop a few dress sizes or a few jeans sizes, or you're gonna have dropped a few t-shirt sizes, just because you've taken the actions that I've said in this video. All right, thank you very much for watching. Get your steps in. Remember, you are the person that you want to be. Peace.